It's been a really interesting time where I feel like I'm not quite at my best, and yet I feel like everything is happening in a way to allow uh, all the things that would normally be irrational fears to subside, or at least for the time being. It's a very weird situation. Full of anxiety for no reason this time, where I used to have anxiety for plausible, reasonable reasons. But now I'm stuck in sort of a holding pattern, I guess you could call it. I guess not exactly, but holdover residuals, I guess is what would be a better way of saying it, because I it's hard to just simply say, oh, for the time being things are calm, therefore one should also be calm, especially after X amount of time trying to apply oneself to being better, stronger, more than you're used to, and then it feeling like everything that you do simply occurs naturally without you actually having to try. And then trying to task yourself with something that's slightly difficult. You're not sure if you should spend extra time trying to get ready for some eventuality, or if you should just try and face things as you are. There's, and then it's like, do you listen to your body? Because your body says that you should do X, Y, Z, and then there's the logical extensions of everything, which could go on ad nauseum, ad infinitum. Um, I guess my brain's a little bit scrambled right now. Would be sort of a pre-social self, even though I've had more or less interactions with other forms of social interaction, yet I hadn't interacted with anyone. I hadn't physically seen anyone nor spoken with anyone, but I've been listening to speech, going on walks where people could have been. A very bizarre situation. Feels like somewhat of a simulated version of reality, where things change from an unseen hand. And I know that there is something that is causing them, and I usually could say, hey, that's this person. But it feels like some sort of primal version of understanding where things are back to, well, if there is no cause, then the effect is unknown. And seeing people for what they are as their actions rather than a physical entity. It's very interesting. So you see a car missing, and you know that it's because somebody has taken it. The question being where, for how long, etc. But you know these things, you know where they're going, and you don't know how you know these things. But it's based off of a previously integrated patternicity. An understanding of the world based not on what necessarily will be, but statistically speaking is incredibly likely. For there are always exceptions to every rule. They are sometimes few and far between. They are sometimes hard to distinguish from one another, and yet they are still as important as the daily routine itself. Statistically speaking, it is unlikely for most patterns to change because people are very patternistic. And yet, I live in a very modular worldview currently, where every day is its own self encapsulated situation. And I've been attempting to hide from these things. I've been attempting to keep these things not only from myself, but from the rest of the world, for fear that somebody might see something that I don't see. While at the same time, coming to... Ugh, that energy drink is really weird. Well, at the same time, coming to accept and be happy that I am not the only entity in existence, regardless of those, theses, that all entities are united and we are all one consciousness. I would understand how that possibility would arise, but even if it were true, it would be incredibly difficult to explain with the types of things that other people can think and do that I will never be able to do, even if I were to apply my entire lifetime to something. I'll never be a physical artist type person. I could spend the next 20 years of my life trying to dedicate myself to the craft, and I would still not be as good as some of the people that I know in my life. And that's fine. There's specific pools of intelligence that each person is privy to. Humanity is a very weird state right now, where expertise is spread. You have hyper-focused groups at the tops of the food chains that are the experts in their field, and then you've got the jacks of all trades, people similar to myself, who can do most things within reason. If you were to give me a task, it's not that I would be able to solve it immediately. It's that knowing myself, knowing my limits, and knowing the people that I know, I would give myself the ability to look through my tool set, see what I can do, give everything that I have to attempting what I could do. And knowing that I'm not enough, being willing to step down and accept help from an outside source. Because just because I don't know something, the part of your tool set is your social interactions. Outsourcing problems has been part of humanity ever since the language portion of humanity was formed. That's why language exists. It's so that people can coexist and solve each other's problems, which is a weird abstraction of how the world is today. You look at all these people and how many different types of communication there are simply to put each other down or harass one another. And it's because the connections are largely no longer there. There's no reason for some people, or at least in their eyes, there's no reason to simply be the types of humans that we've been since before their time. Because as it were, we live in a new era. Technology has advanced faster than the human body. So our psyches are not disconjugate, but dislodged from one another, I suppose, would be a good way to put it. What we want from the world varies by quite a bit. So you could... I am in a very extremely privileged position, and I still believe myself to be largely powerless, but I believe that this is a perspective issue, and a lot of people have perspective issues when they are either repressed from a situation or repressed from themselves. And now if you're repressed from a situation, there's two ways to deal with this. Some people will simply go with it and say, well, I'm the victim now, this is what I have to do. And other people will fight against it, as is largely the human condition to do so. It's human to try and fight back. And yet, more and more people are refusing to, whether they don't feel that they are worth the effort, or they don't feel it is worth the time to try and fix a situation that would require constant upkeep. But the ability to adapt to change, to find solutions consistently. I believe that is what, like, largely makes humans human.